Kai wiped the sweat from his brow as he finished stacking the last bale of hay in the barn. The sun hung low in the sky, casting an orange glow over the rolling green hills that surrounded his small village. It had been another long day of chores on his family's farm, but Kai didn't mind the hard work. There was something satisfying about tending to the land and animals. As he stepped outside and latched the barn door behind him, a sudden flash of light in the darkening sky made Kai look up in surprise. A brilliant white streak cut across the expanse above, much brighter and closer than a typical shooting star. Kai watched in awe as it seemed to arc down towards the ground, disappearing behind a nearby hill. Curious, Kai set off in the direction the mysterious light had fallen. He clambered over a broken fence at the edge of their property and pushed through the dense undergrowth cloaking the hillside. As he crested the top and looked down into the shallow valley below, Kai froze in astonishment. Amidst the waving grass and wildflowers lay the astonishingly beautiful wreckage of some kind of small aircraft, unlike anything Kai had ever seen before. Delicate fins curved gracefully from the body of the vehicle, appearing almost organic. The outer hull shimmered with opalescent colors that shifted in the fading light. But it was the figure emerging from the open hatch that made Kai's heart skip a beat. A woman with platinum hair cascading down her back stepped out, moving with a fluidity and grace that seemed almost otherworldly. Her slim figure was clad in a shimmery bodysuit that clung to her curves. As she fully exited the ship, she looked around, taking in her surroundings. Then her eyes met Kai's and he felt the breath leave his lungs. Even from a distance, he could see they were a startling shade of vivid blue, unlike anything he'd ever seen. She tilted her head, evaluating him with a curious expression. Kai suddenly felt extremely conscious of his sweaty, dirt-smeared work clothes and shaggy hair. Seeming to reach a decision, the woman raised a hand and beckoned to him with a radiant smile, as if they were sharing a little secret. Powerless to resist, drawn forward by a force he couldn't explain, Kai found himself stumbling down the hill towards her, heart pounding wildly. As he got closer, he could see that her delicate features had an exotic cast to them, high cheekbones and upswept brows framing those incredible eyes. A faint shimmer dusted her creamy skin. She was breathtaking. "Hello," the woman said as Kai stopped a few feet away, still stunned. Her musical voice flowed over him. "I appear to have landed in your world by mistake. Perhaps you could assist me." Her eyes twinkled with mischief and interest as she looked him up and down unabashedly. Kai blushed, feeling a thrill run through him under her frank appraisal. Of course," he managed to say, trying to gather his wits. "I'm Kai. Welcome to Alderia. And you are?" "Zyra," she replied with a dazzling smile, stepping closer to extend a slender hand tipped with shimmering nails. "I have a feeling we're going to be very good friends, Kai." As Kai clasped Zyra's offered hand, a tingling warmth ran up his arm from where their skin touched. Her fingers curled around his as she flashed him a smile that made his pulse quicken. "I'm honored to make your acquaintance, Zyra," Kai said, finding his voice again. "But I must admit, I've never seen anyone quite like you before. Where exactly are you from?" Zyra laughed, a melodic sound that seemed to dance on the evening breeze. "Oh Kai, I come from a place very far from here. Another world, in fact. One filled with wonders I suspect you can scarcely imagine." She released his hand and spun around, platinum hair fanning out behind her. "But perhaps it's not so different from your own beautiful land. I find myself quite taken with it already." Her eyes sparkled at him. "I don't suppose you might be willing to show me around? Act as my guide while I'm stranded here." Kai knew he should be warier of this strange, ethereal woman who had literally fallen from the sky. But looking into those captivating blue eyes, he felt his caution slipping away, replaced by a heady feeling of excitement and intrigue. "It would be my pleasure," he found himself saying, returning her smile. "Though I'm afraid there may not be much to see beyond our humble village." "Oh, I'm sure we can find some way to entertain ourselves," Zyra said, her voice laden with suggestion as she stepped closer to him. Kai felt a flush rising to his cheeks. Zyra glanced back at her damaged ship and sighed. Though I suppose I should see about repairing my transport device first. I don't suppose you're much of an engineer. I'm afraid not, Kai admitted. But I'd be happy to help however I can. And we have a skilled metalsmith in the village who may be able to assist you. Marvelous, Zyra said, clapping her hands together. Lead the way then, my charming new friend. She reached out and slipped her arm through Kai's as they began picking their way through the field back towards the path to the village. Kai felt a thrill at her touch, hardly able to believe this was happening. As they walked, Zyra asked him questions about his life in Alderia, seeming fascinated by even the most mundane details. She listened attentively as he told her of tending to the farm, the changing of the seasons, the festivals and celebrations the villagers shared. In turn, she regaled him with tales of her own world, towering crystalline cities, verdant jungles teeming with bioluminescent life, technology so advanced it sounded like magic. Kai hung on her every word, trying to imagine it all. As they approached the outskirts of the village, the homes and barns looked small and rustic to Kai's eyes after picturing the fantastical places Zyra described. He felt a twinge of embarrassment. Seeming to sense his thoughts, Zyra placed a hand on his arm. I find your village utterly charming, she reassured him. There's a tranquility and authenticity to it that great cities often lack. She looked up at him through her lashes. Of course, it may be the company that's coloring my view. Kai ducked his head with a pleased grin as they continued on into the heart of the village. The sun had set fully now and the dirt streets were empty, all the villagers having retired to their homes for the evening. Zyra took in the quaint houses, lamplit windows glowing in the twilight. Is there an inn where I might take a room while I'm stranded here? I'm afraid not, Kai said, rubbing the back of his neck. We don't get many visitors. But I'm sure one of the families would be happy to host you. In fact. He trailed off, suddenly feeling bold. You'd be welcome to stay at my home. We have a spare room. It's not much, but it's clean and comfortable. Zyra turned to him with a slow, delighted smile, eyes gleaming in the low light. Why Kai, how very generous of you, she purred, voice low and intimate. I happily accept your kind offer. Kai led Zyra down the winding path to his family's farmhouse at the edge of the village. He felt a nervous energy buzzing under his skin at the thought of bringing this captivating otherworldly woman into his home. As they approached the house, the front door swung open and Kai's mother Lyra stepped out, a look of concern on her lined face. Kai. I was beginning to worry. What kept you so? She trailed off as she noticed Zyra, her eyes widening in surprise. Mother, this is Zyra, Kai said hurriedly. She's a traveler who's had an accident. Her transport is damaged. I said she could stay with us while she makes repairs. Lyra looked Zyra up and down, taking in her strange, shimmering garments and exotic beauty. A small frown creased her brow. Zyra stepped forward and extended a hand to Lyra, a warm smile on her face. Thank you so much for your hospitality, she said smoothly. I apologize for the intrusion. I promise not to impose on you for long. Lyra hesitated a moment before clasping Zyra's hand briefly. Of course. We're happy to help however we can. Please, come inside. She stepped back from the doorway and gestured for them to enter. Kai let Zyra precede him into the humble but cozy house. Lyra bustled about, stoking the fire in the hearth and setting out a simple meal of bread, cheese and fruit. Zyra complimented the food extravagantly as they ate, putting Lyra slightly more at ease. After the meal, Kai showed Zyra to the small spare bedroom. I'm afraid it's not much, he said as she looked around the rustic space. It's perfect, she assured him. Certainly better accommodations than my poor damaged ship. Her eyes twinkled at him in the flickering candlelight. I can't thank you enough for your kindness, Kai. Truly. She reached out to lay a hand on his arm and Kai felt that now familiar thrill at her touch. "It's my pleasure," he murmured. "I'm glad you're here." Zyra's smile widened and she stepped closer to him. Kai's heart began to pound. But then she pulled back with a little sigh. "I suppose I should let you get some rest," she said, a hint of regret in her voice. "I'm sure you have a long day of chores ahead of you tomorrow." "Yes, of course," Kai said, collecting himself. "Sleep well, Zyra. I'll see you in the morning." "Sweet dreams," she replied with a mysterious little smile as he slipped out of the room. Kai made his way to his own bed in a daze, still marveling over the strange turn his life had suddenly taken. As he drifted off to sleep, visions of Zyra's captivating blue eyes and shimmering hair filled his dreams. The next morning, Kai was up at first light to tend to the animals and fields. He was surprised to find Zyra already awake and outside, face turned up to the rising sun. She smiled brilliantly when she saw him. "I couldn't resist coming out to admire the beauty of your world in the light of day. We don't have sunrises quite like this back home." Impulsively, she reached out to take Kai's hands in her own. "Kai, I wonder if you might take a break from your chores today and show me more of your village. I'm eager to experience all Aldiria has to offer." Kai hesitated, thinking of the work that needed to be done. But looking into Zyra's entreating eyes, he found he couldn't resist her. And what was one day of chores compared to the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to escort a beautiful visitor from another world? "All right," he agreed with a grin, feeling suddenly carefree. "The farm will survive without me for a day. Let's go see the sights." Zyra laughed with delight and looped her arm through his as they set off down the path towards the heart of the village. As they walked, she leaned in close, her hair brushing Kai's cheek. "I knew I could count on you for a little mischief and adventure," she murmured, voice low and thrilling. "We're going to have such fun together, Kai, just you wait and see." Kai and Zyra spent a magical day exploring the village and its surroundings. Kai showed her the bustling market square where farmers and artisans peddled their wares, the lush community gardens bursting with ripe vegetables and fragrant herbs, the shimmering lake on the outskirts of town where the villagers gathered to swim and picnic on warm days. Zyra took it all in with wide-eyed wonder, exclaiming over the quaint customs and charming sights. Everywhere they went, eyes followed them, the villagers gawking openly at Zyra's exotic beauty and strange attire. Under the warm sun, amid the simple joys of village life, Kai felt a lightness and exhilaration he'd never known. With Zyra on his arm, the world seemed brighter, more alive with possibility. As the day wore on, they found themselves in a secluded meadow at the edge of the woods, a sea of colorful wildflowers swaying gently in the breeze. Zyra kicked off her shoes and danced barefoot through the blooms, laughing gaily, her platinum hair shining in the golden afternoon light. Kai watched her, enchanted, his heart so full it felt fit to burst. When Zyra beckoned to him, eyes sparkling with mischief, he went to her readily, joining her dance under the open sky. They spun and twirled together, hands clasped, bodies moving in sync. Zyra began to hum, then sing, an unearthly melody in a language Kai didn't recognize but that seemed to resonate in his very bones. As the song built to a crescendo, Zyra pulled Kai flush against her, one hand cupping the back of his neck as the other splayed across his chest. Kai's breath caught in his throat as he gazed down at her, drowning in the fathomless blue of her eyes. "Kai," she breathed, her voice husky. "Beautiful, kind, innocent Kai. I didn't expect to find someone like you here. Someone who makes me feel things I never have before." She trailed off, leaning in until her lips were a hair's breadth from his. "Tell me you want this too," she whispered against his mouth. "Tell me it's not just me." "It's not just you," Kai managed to rasp, his heart hammering wildly. "Zyra, from the moment I saw you, I've never wanted anyone the way I want you." Zyra made a soft sound of pleasure deep in her throat. "Then take me," she murmured, pressing her lithe body against the hardness of his. "Make me yours." Their lips met in a searing kiss and the rest of the world fell away. They sank down together into the soft meadow grass, hands roaming eagerly, tugging at clothing. Zyra's skin was milky perfection, glowing in the late afternoon sun. She undulated beneath him as he trailed worshipful kisses down the column of her throat, her breasts, her quivering belly. They came together urgently, passionately, Zyra's legs wrapping around his hips to pull him deeper. She gasped and arched, her nails raking his back as he drove into her. Kai lost himself in her, in the silken heat of her body, the intoxicating scent of her hair and skin. He'd never experienced anything so intense, so all-consuming. It was like Zyra had bewitched him, body and soul. They reached their peak together, crying out in shared ecstasy before collapsing into each other's arms, spent and sated. Kai held Zyra close, marveling at the strange path that had brought this enchanting creature into his arms. That was incredible, he murmured into her hair, still trying to catch his breath. I've never felt anything like that before. Zyra propped herself up on one elbow to smile down at him, tracing the lines of his face with a gentle finger. Nor have I, she confessed. You've thoroughly enchanted me, Kai of Alderia. I find myself quite reluctant to leave your arms, or your world. Kai's heart leapt, but he forced himself to ask the question. Do you have to leave? I thought you said your ship was damaged. An uncertain look crossed Zyra's face and she bit her lip. It is, but the damage is not so extensive that it couldn't be fixed, in truth. I may have exaggerated a bit on that point. She looked at him from under lowered lashes. I confess, I was looking for an excuse to linger here with you longer. Kai felt a thrill at her admission even as his mind raced ahead to the potential implications, the risks. Zyra was an alien, after all, her very presence here broke who knew how many intergalactic laws and treaties. But looking into her beguiling face, he knew he was powerless to deny her, or his own rising feelings. Laws and treaties be damned. Then stay, he urged, tightening his arms around her. Stay here, with me. We'll find a way to make it work. Zyra's eyes widened at Kai's impassioned plea, a mix of longing and hesitation playing across her beautiful face. Oh Kai, I wish it were that simple, she sighed, cupping his cheek tenderly. But I have responsibilities, duties back on my own world that I can't simply abandon. As much as my heart yearns to stay here in this simple, peaceful place with you. Kai's heart clenched painfully, but he nodded in understanding, trying to be mature despite the sting of disappointment. I know. I knew from the start this could only be temporary, he said softly, turning his head to press a kiss to her palm. But Zyra, the past day with you has been magical. Beyond anything I could have imagined. I'll treasure the memory always. Zyra's eyes shimmered with unshed tears as she leaned down to kiss him, soft and sweet. As will I, my darling. In all my travels, I've never met anyone quite like you. You've touched my heart in a way I won't soon forget. They lost themselves in each other again as the sun began to dip below the horizon, the sky painting itself in vivid streaks of orange and pink and purple. When the first stars began to peek out, Zyra reluctantly pulled herself from Kai's embrace. I should go soon, she murmured, slipping away while the village sleeps. It's better if no one sees me leave. Kai nodded as he stood and pulled her to her feet. They walked hand in hand back to the glen where her ship lay hidden, moving silently through the deepening twilight. The ship looked as wondrous and incongruous as it had the first time Kai laid eyes on it. Hard to believe that was only a day ago, it felt like a lifetime had passed. Like he was a different person now, transformed by Zyra's presence in his life however brief. Zyra waved a hand and a shimmering door appeared in the seamless side of the ship. She turned back to Kai, her eyes liquid in the low light. Thank you, she said softly, for everything. For your kindness, your guidance, for opening your heart to me. Kai swallowed hard around the lump forming in his throat. I only wish. I wish we had more time. Zyra stepped close to wind her arms around his neck. I know, my sweet. But I will carry you in my heart, always. And who knows? She flashed him a mysterious little smile. The universe works in strange and wondrous ways. Perhaps our paths will cross again someday. With that, she pulled him down into one last searing kiss, pouring all the passion and yearning she felt into it. Kai held her tightly, memorizing the feel of her in his arms. And then, too soon, she was pulling away, backing towards her ship with a wistful smile. Kai watched as she stepped through the open hatch and turned to face him one last time. Farewell, Kai of Eldiria, she said softly. Until we meet again, in this life or another. The hatch sealed shut behind her and the ship began to hum, a soft light emanating from within. Kai stumbled back as it rose smoothly and silently into the night sky, the glow intensifying until it flared a brilliant, blinding white. When the spots cleared from his vision, the ship was gone, only a fading glimmer showing the path it had taken up into the distant stars. Kai stared up at that vast expanse, feeling small and alone, yet also unspeakably blessed to have touched something so extraordinary, however fleetingly. He knew he would never be the same. Zyra had opened his eyes and his heart to wonders he'd never dared imagine. His simple life in Eldiria could never fully satisfy him now that he'd tasted a connection so profound. But he would cherish the memories, the glorious magic of their stolen day together. And he would live each day forward with a new sense of possibility, holding close the tantalizing promise Zyra had left him with, that the universe might someday conspire to bring them together again. For now, that hope would sustain him, a bright ember burning steadily in his heart. Kai raised a hand in silent farewell to the stars above before turning back towards his village, back to the simple joys and steadfast bonds of the life he knew. But his eyes held a new gleam, his step a new vigor. For though his feet were firmly planted on Eldirian soil, his spirit soared free, forever changed by the extraordinary interlude a beautiful, mysterious visitor had gifted him. And deep in his heart, Kai knew, whether in this life or another, he and Zyra would find their way to each other again. Two souls, inexorably entwined across space and time and the infinite possibilities of the vast, unknowable universe.